If you missed it, last night was the announcement of Settlers of Kalguur 3.25, and it looks unreal. The amount of changes coming in this patch are almost unprecedented. This is the patch we've been waiting for. It is amazing from what we've seen so far. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over all of the changes in a kind of quick, rapid fire format to give you a TLDR of everything that's coming in 3.25. So to start out, the league mechanic, we are going to be building the town of Kingsmarch. This is the Act 4 town in PoE 2, and we are the ones who are going to build it. So this is a sort of out of map league mechanic. However, it has some very interesting real-time functionality. We're going to be able to employ NPCs that run errands for us, and then we get the rewards from that. One of the errands that these NPCs can run is mapping. We can send legal bots out into maps to run those maps for us, and then they come back and give us the loot. Now, these NPCs can be killed on their little mapping quests. However, some of the top end, really good NPCs will be able to run tier 17 maps. They are literally adding bots as a league mechanic. There's a few other tasks that these bots can do, but we can also send out ships to go to foreign lands, and we send cargo shipments to those lands and they bring back stuff. And when I say stuff, I mean screens full of currency items. Also, we're getting 3 new bosses, and we're getting Recombinators back. Recombinators will not be as powerful as they were in Sentinel League, but they are still going to be absolutely awesome. Super fun mechanic. If you missed Sentinel League, be sure to check this out. Now, one of the biggest changes, gold. Gold is in PoE 1 now. We're going to be using gold to do pretty much all functions within Kingsmarch, building our town, buying NPCs, but we can also use it to respec skill points on our tree instead of using Orbs of Regret, which will be much cheaper, should mean that we get more early respecs more easily. So this is a very complex, in-depth league mechanic, but it looks like there are a ton of rewards if you spend time investing into learning it and doing it all properly. But it looks like a ton of fun. Now, one of the other huge changes that we're getting in Kingsmarch is we are going to be able to enchant some of our weapons with the modifiers that appear only on unique items. So you could have a rare axe and then apply modifiers from Starforge onto that axe. That is just absolute madness. And then the final change, just from the league mechanic, is that we are getting a currency auction house. No more sitting on the trade site messaging 500 people to buy 1 exalt. We can do it all from within the game. This might be subject to certain problems with bots and price fixes, but we're gonna have to see. Hopefully this does solve that really annoying problem of sitting on the trade site. Now, let's get into some of the balance changes. Melee. Melee is getting a whole lot of new skills called Retaliate skills. These are skills that have an effect once some kind of condition is met. So main one is block. When you block, you do this special counter attack. From my perspective, it looks like most people will be using these as a supplementary skill rather than a main skill. However, with some of the other changes, it does look like maybe you could make your whole build about just retaliating. When you get hit, you do like a bunch of other things. We're getting a whole lot of new armor bases, and these ones are better than any of the other ones we've seen before. New armor bases, better armor bases, and quality on armor is multiplicative. So we're going to be getting way more armor, evasion, and energy shield out of our items. Now, also, Rage has been reworked to be simplified to give more attack damage and no more movement speed. Essentially, it's going to be easier to generate Rage and be more focused on melee builds. However, it does still seem like you will be able to use it on bow builds, but it's pretty cool. Another huge change to Melee is that melee totems have been removed. The Ancestral Protector, Ancestral War Chief are out of the game. Banners have been reworked to function sort of like totems. They've been changed a lot. They seem a lot more powerful and they can't be damaged. But don't worry, all that damage that we are losing from the totems, that is being applied instead to the gems themselves with some really big buffs. Next, Tinctures. Tinctures Are Back. You can have one at a time. They have a cooldown. They burn your mana while they are active. Best to use them when you have a buff, when you need a bit of extra damage, but the amount of damage you can get from these things looks pretty crazy. Now, these are only for melee, unless you're playing the new Warden class, in which case you can apply to both. We'll get to the Warden class. Tinctures, they're going to be able to be normal, magic, and unique, but not rare. Same as flasks. Now, for the end game, we're getting a 6th map device slot, so you're going to be able to pop one extra Scarab in there. Also, we're going to be able to find the Wildwood in tier 16, so Affliction is back. We're going to be finding the Nameless Seer in our maps, and in higher tier maps, he's going to be able to do something called Scrying. Now, Scrying allows us to swap the Divination card drops from one map onto another map. So if you really, really like a map layout and you want to be able to find the Apothecary in it, you can do that now. Also, Kalandra mirrored jewelry is back, which means Doriani might be back in fashion. You're going to find random reflective mists in your map occasionally, and that'll just offer you a random jewelry item with its mods flipped. Or there's going to be an item called a reflecting mist, which is an item, and then you can apply that to jewelry you've crafted. So gonna see some crazy items coming out. We might even see something as crazy as a +6 simplex amulet next league because of this Kalandra mirrored jewelry. Also, Sentinel is back, but not quite in the same way it was before. We're going to find randomly at the start of your map a little Sentinel, and then you'll be able to push the button when you need to do it. You won't be able to roll the Sentinel or anything like that. Scarab Changes, there are a ton, but the main thing is that they're not just giving us free stuff anymore. It's not going to just have a chance to duplicate your maps. Instead, it's going to make things slightly more difficult, but then provide more rewards. All of the ones that were really overpowered last league have either been removed or completely changed. Also, Voldo's boxes are going to be more common. However, the rewards, the good ones like Mage Bloods and Headhunters, are going to be less common. Tier 17s, these are going to be more fair now. Monsters are going to deal significantly less damage and have significantly less life. You're going to be able to apply Chisels and Varlorbs to your tier 17s. The mod pool, however, is unchanged, but the quantity ratios that you're getting are more in line with regular maps. So it's not going to be as out of control as it was last league, but they're going to be way easier. Now, we're also getting a whole lot of new map chisels that lets you specify exactly what you want to get more of out of that map. If you want more scarabs, there's a special chisel for that. You want more divination cards, there's a special chisel for that. We're getting a few changes to Ritual and Delirium. Ritual's going to have more bases. There's a pair of gloves that looks really sick for Seismic Trap. So maybe we'll see the return of Seismic Trap this league. There's a few other cool base changes. However, we're also going to be able to buy some of those Affliction Spectre Corpses. And we will see the return of the King in the Mist. As for Simulacrums, these are now going to be 15 waves instead of 30. They've cut out the boring first 15 waves, so it's going to be straight into the action sooner. There's going to be a high chance of getting some of the uniques, such as Voices. So Simulacrum, looking really good for next league. Then, for Atlas and Mapping, a lot of changes, but the big ones, back to basics, removed from the game. Ghosts have been completely nuked out of orbit. Packed with Energy, nerfed. Beyond looks like it's going to be kind of cooler. Blight and Ritual are more interesting. Next, a huge change. Increased item quantity and rarity. So monster item quantity and rarity has been adjusted so that people don't find literally hundreds of thousands of unique items in a single map. This is why the economy was broken last league. There were a few people pushing the absolute limit last league. No hate on them. They were just playing with what the game gave them. But GG said, you know what? We need to dial that back. The idea with this, don't panic. They want to hone in the top end, but us normies who just do normal mapping will not feel this. The other huge change, MF is basically dead. Item quantity has just pretty much been removed from items. All those uniques that gave us increased item quantity, well, they don't have it anymore. Most of them seem like they're going to be pretty bad now, but the one that's looking really cool is Venters. So instead of having item quantity as a roll on Venters, it said it can now roll increased mana reservation efficiency. So you get 15% increased mana reservation efficiency on your Venters. Now let's go over some of the skill gem balance. This section was super long, but we chatted to our friend Sogog today and he gave us his TLDR, so I'm going to be giving it to you. Divine Blessing. This has been removed from the game, which means that Eldritch Battery is probably going to be a lot less popular. Some gems have been reworked so that only bows or melee can use them. Most spell-based gems are nerfed at the lower levels, but then at level 20 should feel the same. Bow-based builds should feel about the same, but are more sensitive to the role of their weapon. So worse weapon means feel slightly worse, better weapon maybe feel a little bit better. Melee skills overall buffed by about 85%. This is to compensate for the loss of totems if they were already good. However, bad melee skills might have even gained up to 150% more damage. So check out some of those melee skills. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be playing melee next league. So for people who weren't perfect with their uptime of their totems and berserk and all of that, you should feel way better playing melee. For people who are really good at this, it might still feel slightly better, but not as impactful. Detonate Dead, just so dead. Turbo dead. Unearth has been nerfed, can't use certain specters. Corpse life scaling, not going to scale with the map anymore. It's giga rip. Hex Blast Mine, totally fine. Little bit nerfed early, fine later. Lancing Seal of Spraying is going to be fine for other stuff, especially as a trigger. Viper Strike of the Mamba, this is one Sogog himself said, look out for this. This could be a 6 skill next league. Now, attack-based 1 skills are getting big improvements. KB, Power Siphon, we're getting a lot of base crit buffs to 1s. Also, Warcry changes. Warcries are now more primarily focused around power generation, so they're going to be better for people who invest into them, but not as good for people who don't invest in them. And some of the changes to Warcries are really sick. The benefits are great. Warcry support players could also be a thing now, something we've never seen before. We're just going to have a Shout Barb support. Very cool. Also, Inspiration F, I think it is being ripped. It's really not as good as it was before. Next on, Ascendancy Changes. Berserker is looking really good next league. With the changes to Rage, it looks like if you can get 60 Rage, which will not be too hard for a Berserker, you could be getting up to 90% more attack damage and 90% increase attack speed. Madness. Chieftain is actually looking really good next league. They're removing a couple of the really bad nodes and then putting in a really nice one. Should be able to get really tanky on this next league. The big thing that's super nice about this is Warcries have infinite power is one of the benefits of the keystones. So it's like having a red blade banner from very early on. Juggernaut, interesting. Fourth Vow / Incandescent Heart with Divine Flesh could be good. I don't really know enough about the class. It looks like the most boring class in PoE to me right now. Maybe if you're hardcore, but I don't care. Champion has been nerfed super hard. It's getting less fortification. It's losing its flat armor and evasion. It seems almost like a supportish type class. Again, Champion's boring now. Don't play that. Play literally anything else. Gladiator. Now, this is what I think I'm going to be playing next league. They have made it very easy to get block capped on this. They've buffed the Explode on it. You can also get the Explode from your first lab now. Looks very cool, especially with the change to Aggravated Bleeding. So Aggravated Bleeding is a new effect that essentially makes bleeding enemies take damage as though they were moving, which is kind of 3 times the base damage. It's a huge amount of damage. Check out the changes for yourself, but Gladiator is looking mega sick. And we're going to be able to get Rupture as a support gem. Rupture is a previous keystone from the Deadeye. It's not going to be available to us as Gladiators. Deadeye, mostly fine. It stole the Raiders, notable that generates frenzy charges. Tailwind kind of got a little bit of a nerf, but it's fine. And then next we have the Warden. The Warden is replacing the Raider. Raider just out the game. Instead, we get the Warden. This seems like a really cool class. The idea behind this, it's going to function around Tinctures. so you can get an extra tincture. It also allows you to use tinctures with bows. Also provides bark skin, which was one of the affliction ascendancy notables. It also provides a lot of really cool ailment stuff, but the coolest thing is it is getting essentially an ultimate button, something that you build up, and then you get a button that just makes you do, I think, 80% more elemental damage or something. Put it on screen. It looks really fun. Next up, Ascendant is being changed because of all the other classes being changed, but who cares? No one plays Ascendant. As for the passive tree, tons of changes. However, the big ones, Vile Pact has been reverted to its old self when it was really good. Perfect Agony is finally good. This is the crit damage over time thing. So they've removed all the drawbacks and it's all the upsides. So Perfect Agony is looking sweet next league. There's just too much to go into for this. We could do an hour-long video just on the changes to the passive tree. Unique items. The Adorned has been nerfed. Instead of rolling from, I think, 50 to 150, it's now 0 to 100. Defiance of Destiny has been nerfed. Eternal Damnation prevents you from getting Endurance or Power Charge. And the coolest one of all, Comb's Heart. We're getting Legacy Comb's Heart back. 1,000 life, no sockets, just the way it was when it was first added into the game. Love this change. It was such an iconic item that just fell off the wayside, but we may see it coming back. Also, Taste of Hate has lost its fizz taken as cold, instead now gets 20 to 30% of fire and lightning damage taken as cold. Item changes. Biggest thing, multiplicative quality scaling for armor and weapons. This means that the better your weapon and armor, the more you're getting out of it. This is a huge change, especially for leveling attack-based builds. Items that do drop with quality can now drop up to 30% quality. So there's going to be a big hunt for good bases. If you find a good base with a good base percentile and 30% quality, it could be worth a lot of currency. So make sure to put those on your loot filters for next league. Tainted quality currency has been nerfed. Apex Cleaver looking kind of crazy, I think. Life rolls on body armor goes way higher. It goes all the way up to 189. Previously it was 129 for tier 1. Perfect fossils have been removed and instead renamed to opulent fossils, which do something that I don't understand. We can get max res on jewels. Fizz taken as elemental, that's a big change, has largely been removed from the game. It still will exist, but it's going to be harder to come by. So people playing on the right side of the tree who are using Fizz taken as elemental are going to struggle a bit with physical mitigation next league. Might have to invest into some armor, but those new armor bases and the multiplicative quality should help out. Endurance charges now grant less elemental damage taken instead of granting increased elemental resistance per charge. Many weapons have received a huge buff in base crit, meaning it's going to be easier to get base crit with wands, claws, daggers, scepters, staves. Life gain on block removed as a suffix on shields. And now monster balance. They've added something called toughness. This is a thing that makes monsters take less damage. If you see a monster is 100% tougher, it means it's taking 50% less damage. If it's 200% tougher, it's taking 67% less damage. Torment Spirits, like I said earlier, just deleted. Freeze, going to be stronger on pinnacle bosses. Monsters that would apply Overwhelm now instead crush on hit. This is an excellent change. This means you're going to get one shot far less often from those big Overwhelm hits that just chunk through your armor. Instead, it'll give you a chance to at least react, let your Molten Shell proc, you run away. Huge upgrade. As for UI and quality of life, pinnacle bosses, act bosses, they now have a static life bar. Reservation persists through death. Pickup range is increased, along with a few other things, including a million bug fixes. That is going to be it. This patch is insane. If you haven't seen the content announcement, check it out. I'll link it in the description. That's going to be it. Let me know what you think about Settlers of Kalguur. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Divine power! Divine power! It's branching exile. You're making me nervous.